Nice to be back, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, where are you from?
Howdy. Let's find out which Disney sequels are forgotten treasures or, well, fossilized manure. Let's check out the top 5 best and worst forgotten Disney sequels. Just a note that more modern Disney sequels like Ralph Breaks the Internet, as excellent as they are, will be off the list, because they're not exactly forgotten. For those wondering, this is technically an episode 2 to my worst and best Disney sequels. There's a link here if you're curious. Except these are generally the Disney sequels that are forgotten, or, well, mostly anyway. Because some of these lesser known Disney sequels are so decent that they're well worth talking about. And some are, of course, abysmal enough to be well worth talking about. And most importantly, if you do like or dislike these Disney sequels, that's great. It's just my silly personal opinion, and I'm glad if you can enjoy these movies that I can't. Anyway, on to the countdown. The 5th worst forgotten Disney sequel is...
Look for the bare necessities.
Oh, no.
Bare necessities.
The Jungle Book 2. Honestly, I'm kinda mixed on Jungle Book 2. Jungle Book 2 has a good heart behind it, but it's just such a stupid story. But it's a guilty pleasure for me, so it's at the start of the list.
Wherever I wander,
Where are you going?
wherever I roam.
Oh yeah.
It's pointless and barely anything is achieved by its release. 36 years after the original 1967 movie. But I would argue Baloo and Mowgli do get a lot more closure in their goodbye this time. Shame they couldn't have had that closure, 36 years ago. This one was probably the toughest decision for the list, because frankly, this is one of the first times I put a movie I mostly enjoyed on a worst list. You see, to me, what separates Jungle Book 2 from the other bad sequels is it doesn't dump on its original characters. In fact, I personally felt it enriched the original characters. Mowgli's still a troublemaker, Shere Khan is still a menace.
Mowgli.
Baloo is still a carefree rule breaker, and Kaa's still as sneaky as ever. We even get to learn more about the mysterious girl Mowgli followed home, Shanti. Viewers and critics alike almost unanimously tore this one apart, and understandably so. I can certainly acknowledge Jungle Book 2 is an uninventive, unimaginative sequel that went basically nowhere except Mowgli missing Baloo and visiting the jungle. In fact, the story feels a whole lot like an affectionate fan fiction. A very well voice acted fan fiction with pleasant enough animation. Basically, we start by seeing Mowgli's life in the man village and how he's adapted. Mowgli and Shanti have established a sort of mutual child crush. But pretty predictably, Mowgli soon decides that the man village life has too many chores and responsibilities and runs off back to the jungle. An obligatory bare necessities ensues. But of course, as you'd expect, Mowgli decides that he misses fellow humans after all and goes back to the man village. But first he has to meander about, uncertain of what to do in the jungle for 70 minutes. I mean, the main problem is, once we step outside the man village, each jungle scene feels like such an obvious remake of the original that it's almost winking at the audience. Like, my favorite scene is probably Mowgli and Shanti outwitting Shere Khan at the ruins. But I can also acknowledge that it's a by-the-numbers remake of the original movie's Tiger Showdown scene. But as I said, it's a guilty pleasure for me, because as pandering as a sequel feels, I kinda liked hearing bare necessities again. Jungle Book 2 does feel rehashed, tacked on and pointless, but the clean animation and character-filled voice acting makes it pleasant enough in the moment.
With just the bare necessities of life.
Yeah, man!
And the 5th best forgotten Disney sequel is... Aladdin and the King of Thieves. For those who don't know, Disney's Aladdin story was actually a trilogy. Aladdin, Return of Jafar, and King of Thieves. Except the second two had about 1/10 of the budget and staff of the original. But Aladdin and the King of Thieves was given the best budget of the two sequels. And best of all, it even lets Robin Williams reprise his role as a genie.
The bridesmaids have been dressing for hours! Girls, you look just lovely and so grown up too. There's a party here in Agrabah. Guests are filling up the room.
While the first film was primarily based on the story of Aladdin and the Magic Lamp, the third film is based on Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, which is a good choice. I can get mixed on the two Aladdin sequels. Return of Jafar had none of the budget, but all the spectacle and excitement, with Jafar returning as a demonic genie, while King of Thieves feels more high budget, yet ho-hum in spectacle. But for me, Robin Williams returning is a pretty tough to beat highlight. He does give a more off-the-cuff, unfiltered performance than previously, but I actually like to see the genie just let loose.
The party going on now. Got a pot here. Got a pot here. Somebody rub the lamp. Oh, you know I feel it. That's enough.
He transforms into Rocky, to news reporters, to radio disc jockeys, to Moses for some reason, to Forrest Gump, and finally transforms into, Robin Williams.
You've got to get your mind off this incessant waiting.
Somebody's gonna be late for his own wedding!
The story is basically Aladdin and Jasmine are getting married, but their wedding is interrupted by Aladdin's old man, played by John Rhys Davies.
If you're talking about spilling my blood, well, I just don't see that happening.
Very dangerous. You go first.
Who turns out to be essentially Ali Baba with his 40 thieves. Father-son bonding, betrayal and confusion ensues, along with a good plot about a great mystical artifact called the Midas that turns anything into gold. And we finish with a bittersweet goodbye and lots of good chuckles from the genie in between. But my big problem with the King of Thieves has always been the same thing. The spectacle from the previous two movies feels way toned down. Going from Aladdin facing the most powerful sorcerer in the world to an all-powerful demigod satanic genie to having abandonment issues with his dad? And while Aladdin's family issues are perfectly legitimate, they don't exactly make for a suspenseful story to me. But the genie does light up the low spectacle, stealing the spotlight with his not as polished as before, but still captivating performance.
It's a joke. I do that.
And the thieving scenes with Aladdin and his father really do bring that unique Arabia/Vegas combination we get from the original Aladdin. I feel like if King of Thieves was given even half the spectacle of the previous two movies, it'd be one of the absolute best Disney sequels. But it was still a solid, satisfying way to finish off the Aladdin trilogy.
Let's get you dressed, cause you're the star! Hey, come on, it's your wedding day!
And the fourth worst forgotten Disney sequel is Tarzan and Jane. Here we have a Tarzan scene set in the future, reminiscing on the good old days. Because clearly that was so entertaining in Cinderella 2. Essentially what we're looking at is three clumsily stuck together Tarzan TV pilots, with Jane reminiscing with the animals since it's apparently Tarzan and her 1-year anniversary.
You see, today marks the first anniversary of my marriage to Tarzan.
Get out.
Tarzan and Jane reminds me a whole lot of Cinderella 2. Pretty harmless stories of mostly inconsequential fluff, like their minor marriage quarrels or introducing Tarzan to Jane's friends. Or maybe Tarzan doesn't want to wear a suit.
I won't wear the suit.
Why not?
You're embarrassed by me.
Or Tarzan helping some island visitors find diamonds. Or Jane is going on a picnic and it's just... I'm at least glad their marriage quarrels are minor, but it doesn't make for a very interesting story. Some of our minor characters can run on the annoying side. Jane's friends in particular can be a bit overbearing.
Ow! Ow! Oh, Riley! Hazel!
But on the plus side, the animation's still considerably better than the Aladdin TV series. But then again, that's only surpassed by Belle's Magical World and how fugly it looked. The voice acting's okay as well.
What's that man doing?
It's traditional for a groom to give his bride a diamond ring.
But the biggest plus for me to this movie is essentially, I just like seeing the relationship between Tarzan and Jane. It's built on genuine care for one another, and I like seeing them sort through the bumps in their relationship. But the movie was mostly tedious, unrelated island stories. Tarzan and Jane is a dull, completely inconsequential sequel. At best, it's something to have on as background noise. It's harmless, but I'd personally skip it.
Tea?
And the fourth best forgotten Disney sequel is an extremely goofy movie. This movie starts out so well. It's overall good, but parts of it really annoy me, and a painfully recycled pandering sports stars 90s drivel. But there are other parts of the movies that have such good atmosphere to them. It's been about 5 years since the previous movie, and we can immediately see that Max is off to college and he's excited about going. But we also get a sense of that empty nest loneliness Goofy feels about losing his son Max. And that's what I like about these Goofy movies. They're about the perspective of both the concerned father and the son who just wants some independence. Max does capture that excitement that can come from the freedom of moving into your first apartment or in with your first roommates. Or in this case, moving into college, which for many Americans is a big step in their independence. I like moments like this where we're given a quiet moment to soak in how left behind and unneeded Goofy feels, how empty the house feels. Many parents who've had a child who's left the house will tell you they've had moments like this. But then we get the college stuff. And it's about as rehashed as college movies get. While it does feel like Max has matured, it also feels like the writers had absolutely no idea what to do with him. So they just threw him in a bunch of skateboard scenes looking cool. It's moments like this in the movie that really annoy me. It's painting this typical, by-the-numbers, bustling, idealized version of college that feels straight out of a typical college freshman movie. Everyone's gaping in amazement and the girls are fawning over him as Max rides on a skateboard down the street. Ooh!
Look at that guy go. I can't look at him.
Seriously? Are skateboards this uncommon on college campuses? They're gaping like they just witnessed a second coming of Jeebus. Then we get the typical generic bullies.
The only thing you three could win is a loser contest, man.
The typical college clubs and the dethroning of the bad college club. But things do get more interesting when Goofy loses his job at the toy factory, and is soon back on college campus to train up for another job.
Hi, everybody!
Goofy arriving on college gets away from the college cliches a bit, and I like the relationship that forms between Goofy and Sylvia the librarian.
I was just wondering if maybe you'd like to...
We'll go out to dinner?
It's just a simple, pleasant, cute romance that shows the two bonding and having a nice time together. Even the typical romantic misunderstanding is brief and over within a minute. I get the focus is meant to be on Goofy's relationship, but Roxanne not even getting a mention is a shame. I know relationships often come and go, but it would have been nice for her to at least get a mention, even if it was just a passing whimsical sigh from Max. They were a very memorable couple, and I was genuinely curious what happened to them. If you can put aside some of the cliche extreme sports and college stuff, I think an extremely Goofy movie is an overall decent sequel. And the third worst forgotten Disney sequel is Pocahontas II. I should point out, I dislike the original Pocahontas movie, so I'm probably not the most objective person to review this movie, but hey, let's review it anyway. Weirdly enough, I found Pocahontas 2 was the exact opposite problem to Jungle Book 2. Instead of having a nothing story that was pretty well executed, we have a kind of interesting story that was abysmally executed. The basic story is Pocahontas is sent off as a peacekeeper to meet the King of England, and if Pocahontas doesn't act civilized in royal court, the king will declare war on the Powhatan tribe. Yeesh, harsh. Yeah, those scary 50+ Indians, oh boy. But how did they manage to make Pocahontas traveling to England to be a peace diplomat to the king so dull? Like, at least I was kind of invested in Jungle Book 2. At least the pace wasn't so slow that I felt in a stupid funk by the 15-minute mark. But look out, we've got a boat to watch, or dresses to look at. We watch every step, and I do mean every single slow, painful step. We watch her boat slowly making its way across the islands. Then we watch her dancing. Everything happens at such a snail pace in this film. And despite Pocahontas' voice actor Irene Bedard still having a beautiful singing voice, these songs are just muddled and forgettable.
Don't get stuck on that clasp. Johnny's lucky they asked you to go.
Sounding much more like random chattering and yammering that could kind of be considered melodic, maybe? At one point, the voice actors even start singing and talking over one another in one big confusing mishmash, synchronizing into something that annoyed me only slightly less than bagpipes.
And he's rare. I'm quite impressed.
One mustn't stare, she's barely dressed.
A strength of 10, that's what I've heard.
And by the end of the film, I still honestly had no idea what the evil Ratcliffe's incentive was. There's no deeper complexity or relatability to him. He's just your by-the-numbers xenophobe who wants gold, gold, gold.
The king wants his gold.
Apparently, he's convinced the entire Senate of England that dem Indians have gold. But then Pocahontas managed to convince the king that they don't have gold. Oh, who would have thought Ratcliffe was lying? I mean, who wouldn't trust a friendly face like this? And the relationship between John Smith and Pocahontas in the original movie was the favourite romance of many people's childhood. One of the driving factors of the original movie was just how clearly these two loved each other. Yet even I could tell John Smith gets insultingly sidelined in this movie. He comes back at the end of the movie out of nowhere, does some shoddily animated fighting, and then basically gets snubbed by Pocahontas in the ending. And I realize John Rolfe marrying Pocahontas is historically accurate, which apparently is now something Disney is going for? They still left out Pocahontas dying of smallpox though. Since when has Disney given a crap about historical accuracy anyway? What happened to...
I'd rather die tomorrow than live 100 years without knowing you.
I'm okay with these two moving on, but at least make it look like they cared for one another. Let's see them have some emotional conflict in losing someone they loved so dearly. The one part of Pocahontas 2 I did like? Probably the bodyguard of Pocahontas. He was good fun. And the third best forgotten Disney sequel is... Mickey's House of Villains. This is a follow-up from that Mickey's Magical Christmas movie, except with a Halloween theme instead of Christmas. Basically, it's just Mickey and all the Disney characters watching through some Halloween shorts.
Everybody knows there's only one thing to really be afraid of on Halloween.
But then, every Disney villain ever, and I do mean every villain, takes over the joint and tosses Mickey out. Many of the shorts themselves kind of remind me of a lower budget Fantasia with Mickey. And they also include some of my favourite Donald, Mickey and Goofy shorts. Like when the trio tries to run a ghost catching agency. Classic. The main problem I found was I wish the in-between scenes didn't have an animation budget so through the floor terrible. I mean, these character models are just bad. And obviously, all the villains singing about taking over Mickey's house is pretty up there on the cheezo-meter. But given you're watching one of my videos, your cheese tolerance is probably pretty decent. I mean, what other sequel are we going to get Mickey cracking stand-up jokes about Chernabog?
Why, Chernabog threw a big party. You know, it's easy to get to his house. Just make a right on Bald Mountain.
It's funny because it's true.
It's weird, but I certainly cracked a few smiles from it.
I'll take care of that, Jafar.
Gosh, I've never seen her so mad.
Oh, I have.
What I like is not only is the comedy in the shorts good, but unlike Scooby-Doo where we just continually watch the characters run away from the ghosts, here they actually fight back and try to outwit the ghosts. My favourite short is probably Mickey's Mechanical House, with John Cleese as narrator.
He threw off his blankets and slunk to the sink.
Perhaps I'll feel better after a drink.
Its story is minimalist, yet smart, and its quaint art style is a beautiful combination of old and new. It's actually one of my favourite Mickey Mouse shorts. Mickey's House of Villains is a fine sequel packed with spooky, light-hearted romps with Mickey, with some cheesy but interesting transition segments with the villains in between. And for the second worst forgotten Disney sequel, Atlantis, Milo's Return. Oh boy, Atlantis 2 feels cheap. And it's a shame, because there was some really creative ideas and simply stunning animation in the original Atlantis movie. But once again, we get the worst kind of Disney sequel. A failed collection of pilots that were flimsily slapped together and then called a sequel. Milo's Return unfortunately ticks most of the boxes that give Disney direct-to-DVD sequels their lousy reputation. One big thing is the animation is choppy and downright goofy at times, and not the good kind of goofy. This is that type of cheap, sloppy sequel animation that actually manages to be bad enough to soil my memories of the original Atlantis. The voice replacements do an okay job, I guess.
No problem.
Where's the Kraken? He just disappeared!
But voices like Michael J. Fox are a pretty tough act to follow for Tidus from Final Fantasy X.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
Milo's Return was originally the first 3 episodes of a sequel series that was never completed called Team Atlantis. So I guess they figured they'd just release it as a straight-to-DVD video sequel. And for a movie called Atlantis, I was kinda hoping to see more of, you know, Atlantis. Each episode takes place in a different part of the world that ties, loosely, at best, to Atlantis. The first story is that a almost Lovecraft-style massive sea monster is destroying ships in Norway. I do like the mystery build-up in this first short with the village and the mysterious fellow controlling the Kraken and the people, but they quickly dump this story in favor of going to Arizona to talk with a shopkeeper who sells artifacts. Woohoo! The problem is, I just found these stories muddled, short-lived and confusing, and didn't find myself invested. I personally think Milo's Return is definitely a sequel worth remaining forgotten. And the second best forgotten Disney sequel is Tinkerbell, Legend of the Neverbeast. No, your monitor didn't just short out, you read it right. A Tinkerbell sequel is actually, in my opinion, among the best forgotten Disney sequels. You remember that grumpy fairy who was always trying to kill Peter Pan's female companions? Well, it turns out that Tinkerbell has 6 movies in total.
I know, crazy, right?
Despite an adult guy probably not being the primary demographic of a Tinkerbell movie, this movie really kept my attention and immersed me. The Tinkerbell movies are like the animated equivalent to a warm mug of cocoa by the fire. The music is serene, the characters are endearing, it's just lovely. Essentially, these movies revolve around Tinkerbell and her band of pint-sized merry fairies, going through various, also pint-sized stories. Pint-sized, but full of heart. In this case, we get the legendary Neverbeast, known as the Gruff, who is the most pitiable, giant, legendary, green-eyed monster beast I've ever seen. Instead of the sequel being focused on Tinkerbell, this one's focused on her friend Fawn, an animal fairy who enjoys the company of other animals, which can lead her to some trouble as not all animals are friends of the tiny, meaty, kebab-sized fairies, and you can probably see where it goes from there. Fawn tries to help the creature, unaware it has the potential to rain a fiery, fairy apocalypse across the town. Fawn cares deeply for the Gruff and tries very hard to protect it from those who see it as dangerous. Even after she learns its true apocalyptic nature, she tries to find a compromise. And compromise is a damn fine, complex message to be teaching young kids. Even tiny details like facial expressions and body language look lovely. Take a scene like this. The subtle movements of her eyes, the way she sways her body and leans as she speaks.
Well, Hannah Banana, I'd say come back and visit, but probably best keep this a long-distance thing.
Those are the type of subtle details you'd expect in a proper Disney movie. Not a Tinkerbell sequel. Has the world gone topsy-turvy? Will Barney the dinosaur soon start the next emo grunge rock band? What you can tell from Tinkerbell, Legend of the Neverbeast, is that the producers really cared about the young viewers watching. Even for their 5th sequel, they wanted to make something with a good message that's even enjoyable to parents at the same time.
Made them see what I see.
And before we get to number 1, let's go through some quick honorable mentions. Beauty and the Beast, Enchanted Christmas. Pardon me for perhaps judging this movie too harshly in the past. I assumed it was as bad as Belle's Magical World. But realistically, that's a pretty harsh assumption to make about, well, anything. Now that I've watched it, I can say it is certainly nothing compared to the original, but I can still say it stands up as a surprisingly elegant, thoughtful continuation of Belle and Beast's stories. Sure, it doesn't hold that magical essence of the original, but few animations in the world hold that level of magic. But we still do get some scenes that have that sense of grandiose energy from the original. What makes Enchanted Christmas more special is it feels far truer to the original movie characters than...
So you won't believe what the fairy godmother does. She casts a spell that solves all the girls' problems.
that other sequel. It's a silly but quaint story that treats the original material with respect, and I've no guff with it. 101 Dalmatians 2, Patch's London Adventure. Now this is a high-quality, affectionate sequel. I really like just how much the sequel tried to capture the original style. Even the way the CG takes on this more hand-drawn animation style. It's got the same upbeat London spirit, Patch never gets too annoying. A lot of talent was poured into this one. The story is refreshingly unpredictable, as Patch follows a movie star around in a sort of publicity campaign. And I love the setup with Cruella, as she begins loving the art world because of her new infatuation with a painting of a dot, eventually wanting to paint her canvas with puppy corpses, which is just wonderfully bizarre.
How could you do such a thing to the cute little puppy?
Poison them, drown them,
bash them in the head.
Kronk's New Groove. Okay, first off, I love this joke.
And I have a proposition for you. A business proposition.
Oh. Woo! A lot of people have a soft spot for this sequel, and I can see why. Even though many people say it's not necessarily good, it has a humble charm to it. The animation is polished and the jokes may not often hit, but they're very quickly paced and often subtle. Despite all the movement and colours though, I ultimately found it pretty tedious to watch, though I certainly can understand if you do enjoy this one. Anyway, on to the number ones. And the number one worst forgotten Disney sequel is The Fox and the Hound 2.
Good doggy and no bone.
Ugh, really? Disney sequels you can generally lump into either two categories. Either the creators painstakingly attempt to recapture the spirit of the original movie in its sequel, or they're an obvious cringeworthy cash-in that barely glimpses at the original movie before dumping on it. Unfortunately, we're most certainly looking at the latter here. To put it bluntly, this movie is fluff. 60 straight minutes of corny, low-effort fluff covered by disco lights in the background for some reason. Despite being a relatively modern Disney sequel, we have so many of the bad Disney sequel tropes here. One big one is the completely inconsequential sing-talking song numbers with no life or intrigue. I mean, this Good Doggy song was one of the cringiest things I've seen in all the Disney sequels. And I've seen Belle's Magical World 4 times.
It's all a good doggy. It's all at home.
The voice actor sings fine, but this writing is so corny that you just can't make it work. Then we've got dancing ducks, dancing pigs, dancing cows, singing dogs, and pigs shaking their butts. It's just, ugh. This is the only forgotten Disney sequel for this list that has made me physically queasy in its corniness. I mean, I guess the ending's kinda sweet, but that's about all the credit I can give it. This is wastefully good animation for this nothing story, having absolutely nothing to do with the original. We basically watch Copper try to start off his bow wow singing career with a bunch of singing stray dogs. What? So soon, Copper joins the band of singing strays. And seriously, is this action from a dog ever pleasant to look at?
No reason.
Oh, I got me an itch.
But Todd gets jealous of just being Copper's entourage and misses his friend. So he tries to sabotage Copper's singing career. The singing is okay, I guess. It's harmonious enough, but seriously, what the hell am I watching? This is just silly. Very well animated silliness. Like, this has no stakes or drama to it. It's so much straight fluff that they couldn't even manage the standard 90-minute movie mark. At a 60-minute runtime, that's actually kind of merciful of them. Thank you. The original at least tried to tell a story of how war can change our sides, yet our personal bonds with one another can transcend the flimsy politics of the day. This, on the other hand, falls into that stupid faffing about misunderstanding Mulan 2 category of nothing of noteworthy value happening for 60 minutes. It's one of Disney's most shameful examples of a cheap cash-in sequel. It's what I consider the worst forgotten Disney sequel. And the number one best forgotten Disney sequel is The Lion King 2.
Kiara?
Generally, if a Disney sequel makes me tear up while rewatching it, then it's pretty likely to be among the best Disney sequels I've ever seen. I watched a couple of the Disney sequels as a kid, but Lion King 2 is one of the few Disney sequels from childhood I really do remember distinctly. If there's one thing I can say about Lion King 2, it has ambition. It certainly doesn't have the budget of the original, but what I like about it is the message tries to be just as powerful as the original. In fact, I think its message ends up being so powerful that the message transcends the original. In fact, I personally think it's a message so powerful that it's universally applicable to all mankind.
A wise king once told me, "We are one."
But they...
Them? Us. Look at them. They are us. What differences do you see?
It's a message we've heard before, but I didn't even realize it was there when I was a kid. About how people who may look different from us and have different traditions shouldn't be alienated. About greeting outcasts not with walls, but understanding. Behind all that tribal fear of the unknown people can have, there is a real person with complicated feelings and struggles of their own. Kovu, Scar's successor, personifies this perfectly. We get to see him beyond his harsh upbringing and traditions. It really was the perfect choice to go from Hamlet in Lion King 1 to Romeo and Juliet in Lion King 2. But sorry, I haven't even told you the story, have I? It's about Kiara, Simba's daughter, falling in love with Kovu, a lion from Scar's old tribe, and how this brings the tribes together. So many moments in this movie stuck with me. The We Are One song, the ending, the fact that Kiara tries to save the villain in the end. Interesting fact, this scene was originally cut so that the villain Zira didn't joyfully commit suicide. Instead, they cut it so she apparently slipped, but they didn't bother to cut the fact that she was still smiling blissfully on her way to the Reaper. Huh, wonder why. And weirdly enough, I actually like the romance song in this one, Love Will Find a Way. Unlike the original Can You Feel the Love Tonight, which still sounds like the most generic romance song I've ever heard, only getting worse with age, this feels like it had a heart. It had a purpose for being there that suits the story. Anyway, We Are One is a song that touches me so much more as an adult than it did as a kid, and I don't often see a Disney sequel that improves with age. Though there are some complaints I have with this movie. For one, obviously this animation is way too low quality for a Lion King sequel. Why the hell didn't they take the money from the lazy Fox and the Hound sequel and sink it into this far more noteworthy movie? I mean, since Lion King 1 is one of the most beautifully animated movies ever made, it's more noticeable when Lion King 2's animation is average. The other problem I found was that Simba is just too thick-headed at times. After all the mistakes he made and learned from in the original, it feels like some, but not all of that character has been forgotten just so he can be a stick in the mud in everything. And Rowan Atkinson missing as Zazu is sorely felt.
Nothing there but a bunch of backstabbing, murderous outsiders.
I mean, he did 3 Johnny English movies, why couldn't he do Lion King 2? But those nitpicks aside, I strongly believe this sequel did need to exist, because it brought together that same universal, powerful, important message Zootopia brought us 18 years later. In my opinion, Lion King 2 isn't just a great Disney sequel, it's an important Disney sequel. I personally consider it the #1 best forgotten Disney sequel.
We are one.
I'm happy to say that I stand corrected about so many of these Disney sequels. Although the earlier Disney sequels tend to get a bad rap, I can really appreciate that even though a lower budget used to be given, a lot of these sequels have so much thought and earnest care behind them. And even through blander animation, I can often see a good idea or a powerful message trying to be told. And after watching all these sequels, I can conclude this. Ignore the bias or reviews you might hear, including mine if you want. You go, judge these Disney sequels for yourself. Because if I can encourage you to check out something you might enjoy, that's among the most rewarding things to me. And if you think I missed a particularly good or bad forgotten Disney sequel, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. I'm actually really keen to do a list on modern Disney sequels, but I figured I should probably wait till Frozen 2 comes out, as there's not quite enough for a top list yet. But if you would like me to talk about some of the sequels like Ralph Breaks the Internet and Frozen 2, feel free to let me know in the comments. Cheers!